All right. So for this breakout, we are starting before we get to answering those questions with introductions, just so we can kind of get to know each other a little bit better and know who is in this breakout room. So I will start. My name is Melissa De Laurentiis. I am new working for the College and Career Readiness Bureau at PED. And my field is really focusing on advanced placement courses and then general support of CTE throughout the state. And so I welcome you guys and thank you for taking the time to join this meeting. I will pass it to Alex as our other PED representative for her introduction.
Good afternoon. I'm here. I will hopefully remain more or less silent to listen to you all as the experts. I do work in the College and Career Readiness Bureau as well. I'm one of the managers. I oversee various aspects of college readiness programs.
And thank you, Alex. And so if the three others in the room will go around and just introduce yourself. I put into the chat just kind of idea, name, organization, what your role is. And then maybe if you want to share a little bit about why you chose to spend your time in this meeting this afternoon, even though I'm sure you are very, very busy. So kind of what is the motivation for providing input in this format? Anybody willing to start?
I'll start. Oh, go ahead, Peter.
Oh, go ahead, Rebecca. I'll let you go.
So I'm Rebecca Estrada. My role is as the specialist for higher education and workforce development with Los Alamos National Laboratory. I'm actually housed in the Community Partnerships Office. So my role within the organization is to represent hiring managers. So with an organization that's large, we have multiple divisions, including our human resources, but other areas, including where I work in Partnerships and Pipelines Office that works with our internal group to partner with regional institutions of higher education as well as K-12 to build workforce. And so that's part of what I do, is facilitate those conversations, introduce, some of the needs that we have. My reason for being here this afternoon is just that. I mean, I've been involved in helping to create these partnerships. I've been involved at Perkins Table prior to being at the laboratory. I was 15 years at Santa Fe Community College. In a variety of positions. And then prior to that, basically I was in higher ed for about 20 years, but I also oversaw dual credit programs. So understanding how important those career pathways are.
Awesome, thank you so much.
I'm Peter Ames with Loveless Health, and I lead the IT organization with Loveless. Well, let's see why I chose, healthcare there's so many different areas that you can get into with technology. It's not just a computer and a network. And I think, Preston, I see you here too. You could probably agree with me that if it lights up, beeps, or plugs into it's considered a piece of IT equipment, right? Whether it's biomed, and the surgical, all of this equipment, and it's all integrated together into an electronic health record. But I guess there's things in radiology and lab and nuclear medicine. There's all of these areas that we need help with, and so that was kind of my purpose for joining today, is that besides the pure what we think of IT, healthcare has so many other areas to work in.
Awesome, thank you very much for sharing.
Yeah, Peter and I are kindred spirits there. We soup to nuts. My name's Preston Birdwell. I work here at Christus St. Vincent in Santa Fe. I've worked in IT for 20 years, just many different jobs, and I've even worked in the operations side of things down on our receiving docks. And so I've been kind of all the way around the thing. And he's right. I mean, we see so many different aspects of IT, quote unquote, in every single business unit that we have. And literally, like for me, why I got involved in this, my CIO asked me, because I kind of spearhead I have a team of developers here, and our task this year especially is to automate everything. So we want to just like get to the place where we have less human error in input. We have more, automation to tell us about, things when there are exceptions, and, we're not relying on a person to catch errors and problems in our EMR and our ERP systems, and anything else. Like Peter just mentioned, we have so many different interfaces and integrations that, all the way from an HL7, type format interface to just flat files going back and forth between all these different cross platforms. And so I really think from the question you guys are asking about what we need going forward is that type of a mentality to be put into students, into people coming into IT field, is how we can use the technology to automate and integrate going forward with everything. And this is like, I'm talking HR, payroll, accounts receivable, purchasing. Every single unit that we walk into, we do these user stories, and we start right away with a model of asking them what they do. And once we find out what they do, we inject our, solutioning for the automation. And we have, I'm not kidding, like we've transformed people's jobs, because hours and hours spent on manual. Like anytime I hear somebody's doing a vertical lookup in Excel, I'm like, we can automate that. So, yeah.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. Douglas, would you like to introduce yourself to the group?
Try to find my mute button. Apologize, I missed the last few minutes. World tends to blow up occasionally out here on the base. So Scott McCurdy, I'm CIO for Air Force Safety under Major General Jeannie Levitt. I'm not entirely sure how I got connected with this, but I'm connected with the CNM group that that occasionally discusses what they need from an educational standpoint. I think sometimes I provide a little bit different perspective because of my mission set out here at Kirtland, and honestly for what we do around the world for our airmen. And so probably have a little different take than Peter, who's a little more in the commercial public sector, if you will. That's about the only person I've recognized so far and talked to in the past. But so I didn't get a chance to read through the plan. Tertiary, I kind of have an idea of what kind of what you're looking at. And so I guess I would ask kind of like what you're kind of looking for from obviously my background is computer science. I was a developer for a number of years, project manager, program manager, in and out of the Pentagon for a couple of years, and then back here to New Mexico. So kind of dealt with, our team deals with a lot. Most of our infrastructure is centralized now in the cloud. Our team is spread remotely across the country, mostly DC metro area and here in Albuquerque. But we deal with everything from cloud networking, cybersecurity, procurement, acquisition, to we're kind of across the board. So we deal with a lot. And obviously at the Air Force Safety Center, which is where we're housed, headquartered here on Kirtland, we have all the comms and small computers and so forth, and work in the center. So so it's a kind of across the board. We deal with everything from software to cyber to virtual servers and cloud infrastructure. And then of course government regulation is always a big fun one.
Yeah.
that we get to play in that environment too. So so we're occasionally good at loopholes, if you will, and figuring out ways around certain things. But anywho, so kind of getting a grasp of this conversation, but I'm not sure where you guys ended up over the last few minutes.
Yeah, no, we're just getting started. So perfect
Okay,
timing.
perfect.
I did put a link for a Padlet in the chat box. If you're able to click on that and join. And to go along with what was just stated, I really believe it's that diversity of idea and industry that's really important in this conversation, because we're really looking at how do we support all of this for our students in what they need. Stop sharing for a second and pull this up again. For IT, computer science, and all of the various applications of what that looks like at this time and preparing into the future. So I'm sorry, my Padlet went down. Let me just pull it back up for you guys. And there you go. Are you guys able to see the Padlet on my screen now? Perfect. So to begin this conversation, as explained in the main group meeting, we have 2 questions that we are going to ask you to consider and give your feedback on. We're going to start with question 1, which is, what is one thing that you would consider an essential piece of every computer science or IT program? There's a couple of different ways to tackle this. We would like to get your thoughts, and I know it says one thing, but please feel free to put multiple ideas down. On the Padlet, you can click the little plus button and write your ideas directly on so that we can all see thoughts as they are being recorded, or you can put them into the chat and I will copy and paste them into the Padlet. Whatever works for you is fine. So I'll give you some think time to consider some ideas.
Can I note as well, Melissa, that our focus and our influence is on high school programs. So we're not thinking of bachelor's level issues.
Thank you for that clarification, Alex. Yes, so in high school and the students that we are preparing as a public education department for the state of New Mexico, essential pieces that those programs need to have and consider.
So you just want us to start talking?
So you feel free to talk. You can
Okay.
click the little plus button under the question number 1 and type it down. Either way works. I will record your ideas as we go if you would prefer not to add it to the Padlet.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and type mine in, but you know, for me, it's the humanities, it's empathy, it's human relations. How do we teach that? How do we consider that as part of an IT program? Especially in healthcare, but throughout my career, it's always been those that seems, you know, are most successful, and those that nothing gets done without people. It's through people that we accomplish and create value. But people are very complex and we're not logic. You know, we teach logic in computer science, and we teach you know, that things are very discrete, but that's not the world we work in and live in. And so that would be one area, I think.
Thank you. I think that's a really critical piece and has become more apparent over the last several years. Thank you. I see ideas being added. So scripting introduction, PowerShell is a good one to begin with. Microsoft Power Platforms, automation. I know that was discussed in the introduction as a really important idea. So at the K-12 level, access to current industry professionals that allow students to imagine career destination. That's a very valid point. I've always said to my students, you can't be what you can't see, right? So if you don't know what an IT person does, or a computer scientist, or any what field, if you have no background knowledge for what it is that person does, how do you know if you want to be that? Or how do you know how to enter a career within that realm?
Yeah, and I would argue, I'm the one who put that. It's also, as we've said in the main room, but I think it's been said in this room, you know, we say computer science and IT, we don't understand the myriad of things that really means, right? Like, to suggest that that's an umbrella, or those are 2 different umbrella statements for a whole wide variety of different kinds of opportunities, I think is kind of an understatement. The other thing that I think I would probably add, and I don't know really how to say it succinctly in a, you know, in this kind of format in a Padlet, although I'll try, is, is something about understanding, right? You need to have that relationship with industry, not just for that access, but also to be able to say, these are the, if you think about career pathways, these are the foundational classes, right? We're talking about K-12. So we're not going to be able to be talking about specialties yet. So having those very clear relationships so that there can be real information about what are the foundational skill sets that can be taught in a classroom at a particular K-12 level that will set students up for success as they move into the more specific, right? As they can branch out into those specific areas. So, I mean, I think it would be, access to industry to also have foundational courses, right? I mean, again, sorry, I'm not thinking of a good way to say it very succinctly.
No, I think your point is very valid and makes complete sense to me in relation to this conversation.
I wonder, Rebecca, if you have any specific suggestions. I mean, are there things that come to mind right off the top of your head that you would say that are foundational, that these ought to be taught broadly?
So, I mean, given that I know who else is in the room, I'm a little bit hesitant to answer that question because I think there are people who can answer it better than I can. But I do think that some of those introductory networking courses, coding courses, those sorts of things are what we're seeing are places that you could start at the K-12 level that would be helpful to students, again, as they kind of move forward and pick. But again, I think that there are going to be folks who are specifically, who are going to be more able to specifically answer that question than I can.
Would anybody like to jump on to that thought?
Yeah, I'll jump in. It's I tend to think more from in the past, at least from a collegiate standpoint and bachelor standpoint, or even I don't really care that much about a bachelor standpoint. The hiring managers probably do, but I think more skill sets and when I think through one of the things I'll kind of tag along with what Peter, I don't know about a full humanities load, but certainly have some, having them take a psychology class or a sociology class, because having some understanding as to how people think, I think is critical to the user experience, if you will, with any given IT asset, if you will. So, but the thing I put down was kind of working through and inspiring critical thinking and problem solving. Most successful folks in IT kind of have that natural innate urge, if you will, to problem solve and being able to kind of think critically and oftentimes think out of the box and around problem sets. So kind of working through that at a high school level, I think it's good to kind of work through some of that. I mean, there's other very specific skill sets I could dive into, but that's probably more getting them ready for, things like Python and programming and some level of scripting. I mean, the other thing that probably to put on everybody's radar is as we move forward over the next 5 years, you're going to hear more about neuromorphic programming and computing, which kind of takes the human out of the loop from a doer standpoint and puts them more into an audit role, if you will, especially within the cybersecurity where the machine learning and analytics are going to be doing a lot of the work. So the computers will be doing a lot of the work, and you'll be more interjecting outside of the loop, if you will, as opposed to as a part of the loop. So just something to kind of put on everybody's radar as you think through over the next 5, even 10 years from a education perspective. I think it's going to change how we do computer science a good bit. Over.
All right.
Did you call that Norfolk?
Neuromorphic,
Okay.
neuromorphic computing. Sorry. It's my accent.
All right, so we have just a few minutes left. So I'm gonna have us transition over to question number 2, which is asking you to consider specifically what is one thing that your company or organization could do to support the various computer science and IT programs that are happening at our high schools throughout the state of New Mexico. So the same format, feel free to add to the Padlet by clicking on the plus button, or you can unmute and speak. Internships, that's a huge one.
Yeah, that was my one. Also internships, any sort of mentor capabilities we might have. We do some of that today with like the Governor's STEM Challenge and
Right.
different areas. So
Peter, what level of experience would you need in order to take a high school intern?
I think that would be certainly some entry level, what I would consider entry level, whether it's desktop support, help desk, service, those type of, but that gives you a good experience into what the different types of technologies are that are involved in healthcare, and that's always or can be typically a starting point for a career in IT.
I've had some huge successes on our team. We do applications development with just starting people from high school level, or even just, right out of college, in just doing what we do and watching what we do. And then, seeing how these different interfaces interact and files that transfer from one place to another, and the extract, transformation, and load process of data,
So kind of speaking to the kind of on the job training idea and learning as you go.
Yeah, we just put them in and just start showing them exactly what we do, and just kind of slow it down a little bit, but not too much, and then they get caught up really quickly. Usually I see.
Have you done any kind of training for your staff in support of that, or has that just naturally emerged?
I do this onboarding process. I brought on 4 new developers within the last year, and these are people right off of, like Peter said, like out of our help desk and our PC tech shop, which seems to be kind of a really good place to pull in people from. However, I have had one person come in without any previous IT background, and all of them grew together at the same speed, really. And I do have a training program. Yeah, it's more of like doing things in a test environment, like kind of a sandbox, but it's actual work, right?
I'm wondering what would make a candidate for such an internship stand out, a student intern? What skills would he or she come with that would make you want to select that person?
I think just like somebody mentioned a minute ago about problem solving and critical thinking, those 2 things are huge, right? Like the ability to just kind of not be afraid either to make the mistake, in the system. It's a sandbox. That's what it's for. You know what I mean? So
How
yeah,
do they show you that?
like what I've done is like given people a task, and then I'll stand back, and it's always hands-on. I think that's important too. Like let them do the typing of the commands, let them do, the logging of it, let them see the result, because that's hugely satisfying once you see something actually work, And so the way they would show me that is by being willing to take that risk and jump on and share their screen, like in this type of a scenario where, we're in this post-COVID era now, where we're having to do things, virtually. So the person who's willing to step up, the person who's willing to share their screen and hey, I'll just take a stab at that,
To piggyback on that, you let them fail.
Right.
Like this is not
They
a
have
test. You don't run in, and if you don't do the right math equation,